Welcome to Fantasia, home of the Melodious. My name's Azallea, and today, gonna be bringing you guys another playtesting video. So this time, we're gonna go ahead and work with my Ritual Beast deck. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into this. So starting off, we're going to go ahead and draw our 5 cards. We see that we're starting with Repengu, Kanahawk, Torrential Tribute, Pot of Desires, and Zephyrin-Pilica. Now, in and of itself, this hand isn't really that great. It all comes down to what we draw with our Pot of Desires, because otherwise we would just normal summon a Repengu or a Kanahawk, use its effect, and pass. So we're going to go ahead and banish the top 10 cards of our deck to draw 2. Now, Pot of Desires is a controversial card in a deck like Ritual Beast where you're running a lot of cards as singles, things like Lara, Wen, Zephyrin-Pilica, or even things like Apelio and Petalfin. And in this banished pile, we see that we actually banished our only copy of Apelio from our deck, which kind of sucks, but it also really doesn't matter in the long run because we drew into a copy of Repengu and Monster Reborn. So the Monster Reborn is one of the key cards to making this hand work, and I'll show you why. So we're going to go ahead and normal summon a copy of our Repengu from our hand, and we're going to activate its effect to go ahead and banish a copy of Ulti and Falcos from our extra deck in order to send a Psychic type Ritual Beast monster from our deck to the graveyard, and that means that we can go ahead and send a Tamer. So in this case, I'm sending Spiritual Beast Tamer Winda from my deck to the graveyard in order to get her into circulation. Now, obviously, we don't have something like Apelio to go ahead and banish her from the graveyard and put her into the banish zone, but what we do have instead is a Monster Reborn. So Monster Reborn can go ahead and revive Winda from our graveyard, and now you have a multitude of options to go for. You can go, obviously, into your Link plays, you can go into your Fusion plays, but you can also, at this point, go into XYZs because you have 2 level 4 monsters on your side of the field. But of course, since this is our first turn and we're trying to set up a decent board, we're going to go ahead and Link Summon into our Ulti and Falcos. Now, Ulti and Falcos is going to go ahead and activate its effect, banishing Winda from our graveyard in order to give us an additional normal summon. Now, the reason why we banish Winda is because she was already special summoned this turn, so she cannot be special summoned again. And again, getting her into the banish zone is fantastic for getting her into circulation so you can defuse into her later. So we're going to go ahead and use our extra normal summon that was granted by Ulti and Falcos on our Zephyrin-Pilica, and then Zephyrin-Pilica is going to use her effect to revive our Repengu back from the graveyard. Then once Repengu is out on the field, we're going to activate his effect to banish a copy of Ulti Petalfin from our extra deck in order to go ahead and send in Petalfin from our main deck to the graveyard. So as we see here, we actually didn't manage to banish that, and we're going to send that instead. Now, if I did have the Apelio in my main deck, I would have banished the Apelio instead, but here we're just working with what we have. So I'm going to go ahead and use my Pilica and my Repengu to go ahead and fusion summon into my Ulti Kanahawk. There we go, right there. So we're going to put the Ulti Kanahawk in the center, it really doesn't matter where you put him, and then we're going to go ahead and, of course, activate his effect, Ulti Kanahawk, allowing us to go ahead and search for any Ritual Beast card in our main deck. Now, it's important to keep in mind that I do not have the means of defusing with this Ulti Kanahawk to go and get value out of my resources in the banished pile, so I'm just going to go ahead and target my Ulti and Falcos and my Ulti Petalfin, put them to the graveyard to go ahead and search out for a copy of Steeds. Now, that's pretty much the extent of this turn because we don't have the means of defusing, so I'm going to go ahead and set a Torrential Tribute and my Steeds to my side of the field. If you felt the need, you can feel free to go ahead and replace that Steeds with something like Ambush instead, if you feel like your matchup requires you to grind out more and focus more on recovery plays. Now, in my hand, I have a copy of Kanahawk and Repengu that I can use next turn to just normal summon and get more monsters on the field. Okay, so that does it for the first hand. Now, taking a look at our second opening hand, we're going to go ahead and draw our 5 cards, and we see we opened with a Droll and Lockbird, Repengu, Kanahawk, Ash Blossom, and Anti-Spell Fragrance. So this is a more hand trap heavy deck, but because of the fact that we open with something like Anti-Spell, it makes this hand actually pretty good. So we have Droll and Ash backing us up from the hand, we have an Anti-Spell locking down our opponent's spell card usage, and we also have a Kanahawk and a Rapengu that we could potentially summon to put a body on board while making some plays. So I'm going to go ahead and normal summon my Kanahawk, and I'm going to use its effect to banish Elder from my deck. And the reason why I'm banishing Elder in this case is because my hand is really subpar and I don't really have enough materials to go for any combos. So I'm going to go ahead and banish the Elder just in case a few turns pass by, and then Ulti Kanahawk's Gold Sarcophagus effect kicks in and Elder gets added back to my hand. Alright, so during the end phase of this turn, after I set the anti-spell fragrance, I have a Rapengu, Ash Blossom, and Droll and Lockbird in my hand, ready to go for my opponent's turn. Alright, so that does it for the second opening hand. Ritual Beasts don't always combo off very often, depending on the consistency of your build, and of course just pure luck at what you draw. So, looking at this opening hand, we have a copy of Steeds, Anti-Spell, Droll and Lockbird, Desires, and Rapengu. So this is, again, not a very combo-heavy hand, however, that could be fixed if we potentially draw something off of our Pot of Desires. So we're going to go ahead and activate our Desires, banishing the top 10 cards of our deck yet again, and drawing 2. Pot of Desires comes in very clutch at times like this, where all you really need is to combo off, get a few searches, and establish a strong first turn board that pretty much ensures you that you have game either next turn or the turn following that. So our Pot of Desires didn't really banish anything too important, which is good, and then we managed to draw into a copy of Emergency Teleport and Ritual Beast Steeds. So Steeds, of course, is a great disruption, and it's fantastic to have, so you just don't have to go and waste a search on it. You can go for things like Ambush and add variety to your back row. Now, the Emergency Teleport is what makes this hand playable because it allows us to tutor a Tamer out from our deck. So the first things first, we're going to go ahead and normal summon our Rapengu and activate its effect, banishing the Ulti Kim and Falcos from my extra deck to go ahead and send a copy of Spiritual Beast Tamer Winda from my deck to the graveyard. Again, it's very important to try to get her into circulation as soon as possible. So the next thing that I'm going to do is activate the Emergency Teleport that I drew into with that Pot of Desires, and I'm going to go ahead and special summon a level 3 or lower Psychic type monster from my deck. In this case, I chose to special summon out an Elder from my deck because the fact that he's not really that useful to draw into, seeing as I don't have any more Ritual Beast cards in my hand for him to get value out of his double normal summon effect. So, using those two materials on the board, I'm going to go ahead and conduct a fusion summon, and I'm going to go ahead and summon out a Ulti Petalfin. Now, the reason why I didn't go for Ulti Kanahawk here is because I don't really have any combos that can go into, any defuse plays that I can go into that gets me value out of my searches, while also allowing me to tag out with my Ulti Kanahawk. So, with this opening hand, I have an anti-spell and 2 Steeds that are set to my back row, so even though I couldn't go for any searches, I still have a lot of disruption, and I have a Floodgate in the form of anti-spell that I can sit on for a turn. I also have a Droll and Lockbird, so if my opponent tries to search, they're only limited to that one search for that turn, so I'm feeling rather comfortable. So even though it's not a very flashy opening, it's still a very strong one. Okay, so next for this opening hand, we see we have a copy of Monster Reborn, Ash Blossom, Desires, Lara, and Elder. So it looks like we're just not opening with that Elder and Kanahawk or Elder Rapengu combo. That's very rare to draw into, actually, if you look at the mathematical probabilities behind it, but that's why we're running Pot of Desires. So hopefully Pot of Desires comes in clutch this time. We're banishing the top 10 cards of our deck, and we're drawing 2 more cards. So let's take a look at what we banished. We see a copy of Rapengu, Winda, and a few other cards, but it doesn't really look like we banished anything too important, which is really good. There's that one blank card that's there that's a proxy for my 3rd copy of Winda, so technically we banished 2 copies of her, but as long as there's still one left in the deck, we can make magic happen. So we managed to draw into a copy of Anti-Spell Fragrance and a copy of Kanahawk, and this is actually just perfect, because with the Elder in our opening hand and the Kanahawk that we just drew, we can go into the classic Ritual Beast, Elder, and Kanahawk combo. And because our Pot of Desires didn't actually banish the Apelio, we have access to him as well. So normal summoning the Elder to my side of the field, and then normal summoning the Kanahawk as well, I'm going to activate Kanahawk's effect to banish the Apelio from my main deck. And now with my 2 monsters, the Elder and Kanahawk, I can go ahead and go for a fusion play by banishing both of them from my side of the field and summoning my ulti Kanahawk out in defense position. Now, ulti Kanahawk can go for a search in this case, and what we want to grab from our deck is possibly just more back row, because the fact that we already have a Lara in our opening hand. So if you've watched my Ritual Beast combo tutorials, by the way, a link to those will be down below. You guys can go check them out. This is one of the combos that was showcased, and typically what you want to do is you want to search for a copy of your Tamer first with your ulti Kanahawk search, but because we already have one in the hand, it basically just means we get an additional trap card in our arsenal. So I originally tried to put my Elder and my Apelio into the graveyard, but then I tagged out with my ulti Kanahawk, special summoning the Elder and the Kanahawk out to my side of the field, and then I got to search with the ulti Kanahawk's effect after it resolved, getting me a Steeds. Now I'm going to go ahead and activate the Kanahawk's effect on the field to banish another Ritual Beast monster from my deck, and in this case I'm going to go ahead and banish a Winda. Now it's important to note that Ritual Beast monsters can only be special summoned once per turn, so because things like my Elder and my Kanahawk have now been special summoned, they cannot be special summoned again. So now I'm going to go ahead and use both of those monsters to go ahead and link summon into my ulti Kim and Falcos, and ulti Kim and Falcos is great because the fact that it grants you additional normal summons, and it also puts your resources back into the banished pile from your graveyard. So I'm going to go ahead and banish my Kanahawk from my graveyard in order to conduct an extra normal summon. And so because I already had the Lara in my hand, I could just normal summon the Lara, go ahead and activate her effect, and special summon the Apelio from my graveyard. It's very important that you do this because otherwise there are no other targets, so don't banish the Apelio with your ulti Kim and Falcos. Now I'm going to go ahead and activate my Apelio's effect to banish the Ritual Beast Tamer Elder from my graveyard, just to put him into the banished pile for circulation and for more fodder for my ulti Kanahawk's effect. So I'm going to go ahead and use my Lara and Apelio to fusion summon into my ulti Kanahawk. And now ulti Kanahawk can use its effect to go ahead and target 2 cards to put back into the graveyard. In this case, I'm targeting the Lara and the Elder. Then I'm going to chain ulti Kanahawk's effect to itself to defuse into a copy of Lara and the only other monster that has not been special summoned yet, which is going to be my Winda. So Elder is going to be put back into the graveyard, and then my monsters are going to be summoned out to my side of the field, and then I can go ahead and just grab a search. So because we searched a copy of Steeds earlier, the more reasonable play to go for here is to search out a copy of Ambush. So Ambush is great for recovery plays, and is definitely something you want on your side of the field so that you can flip over during your opponent's end phase, so even if they clear out your board, you still have a follow-up play for next turn. So now that I have both Steeds and Ambush in my hand, pretty much our searching is done. We don't really need to go for any more or overextend or overcommit to the board. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and fuse with both of my monsters on the field to special summon a ulti Petalfin out from my extra deck. And ulti Petalfin cannot be destroyed by card effects, so it's just an additional layer of protection from my side of the field. Now keep in mind that I do have 4 monsters that are currently banished, so both my ulti Petalfin and my ulti Kim and Falcos can both tag out if necessary. So now I have my anti-spell fragrance, my Steeds, and my ambush all being set to my back row to put the fear into my opponent. So my opponent basically is going to be locked out of playing spell cards, and he's going to have to face an entire board wipe if I decide to tag out and use Steeds to wipe up to 4 monsters off the face of his board. Now we also end our turn with an Ash Blossom in hand and a Monster Reborn as well, and Monster Reborn is a very important recovery card in this case because if ulti Kim and Falcos is ever destroyed and sent to the graveyard, we can just go ahead and Monster Reborn it back to our side of the field, and then you can just tag out with it, put it back into your extra deck, and then special summon materials from your banished pile. So it is a fantastic card to have for your second upcoming turn. So anyway guys, this is it for this playtesting video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, please leave a like, subscribe for more Ritual Beast content, and leave a comment down below letting me know what I can do to improve. And until next time, take care.